Welcome to this podcast from the Human Capital Institute's High Performance Organizations, Integrating Talent Management and Finance, sponsored by Taleo. The conventional way of approaching organizational performance is to separate finance and talent management and put them into separate boxes. In a recent webcast, Dr. Ted Prince of the Perth Leadership Institute showed that this approach has pernicious impacts to the high-performing organization. He set out an approach based on the emerging fields of behavioral economics and behavioral finance, which demonstrated that all behaviors have a financial impact.
So what I'm going to be talking today about is, in the leadership area, the problem of financial underperformance. I'm going to talk a little bit about our research, some of the implications for financial management, and how you can do something about this by building a business acumen program. And the idea behind our model and approach is that we've all got a financial personality. We've all got financial drivers, but they're unconscious, and they lead us to do things that we didn't intend, or they lead to unintended financial results. And it's really nothing to do with intelligence or education. We're all equally subject to them. We saw that. We may think that we're doing the right thing, but we've got unconscious financial drivers, just like we've got unconscious other factors in our personality that lead to unintended outcomes. All humans fit into this graph. We can fit anyone here. We can measure their attributes and tell you where they are. And once we know where you are, we're going to be able to predict what their behavior is going to be like in financial terms and what the financial consequences are. And we're even going to be able to give you precise financial metrics relative to competitors. We can take that one step further, as I do in the next slide, 35, where I look at the financial signatures, what we call the 9 financial signatures. As you see here, what we've done is simply make them more granular and give them each a name. And let's put some names to faces. The people on the upper left are probably like Bill Gates, very high value adding and very frugal. The people on the lower left are people like, let's say, Sam Walton at the start of his career. He's very frugal and also actually at that stage very low value adding. He only changed later and moved to be a market maker. You're going to have people like Steve Jobs, who's clearly naturally on the upper right, high value adding, high expense. He's gradually over time, after a couple of failures, reached a spectacular success and moved into the profit maker position. And people on the lower right are people like Wagner and General Motors, low value adding, low resource utilization. So you can see that once again, by using psychometric measures, we can divide people up into different types. And we do measure these things psychometrically. We have an assessment that does this. I've given you an example of this here. So you can measure these things psychometrically, and once you do that, we can start talking about financial consequences. Now, we've now got enough information in what I've told you so far to talk about valuation specifically. And you can see that in each case, a person's financial signature has got a defined and characteristic relationship with the valuation outcome. So, for example, if I look at a market maker on the upper left, a Bill Gates, here I'm generating huge, I've got a very high propensity to add value. As a consequence, I'm getting very high gross margins. My indirect expenses are very low. Therefore, I'm generating a huge amount of capital and profits, and therefore my valuation goes up very rapidly. Now, if I look at the industrialists on the far right-hand side, lower right-hand side, we're looking at exactly the opposite situation. The industrialist has got a very low propensity to add value, so low gross margins, very high resource utilization, so very high expenses. So he's consuming capital. He's losing money, drawing down his reserves, and as a result, his valuation relative to his competitors is going to go down very rapidly. And for those of you who are familiar with the Center for Creative Leadership, you're probably aware of the model they have of behavioral derailment. You can regard this model as showing you how individuals and financial cultures derail financially and derail in valuation terms. People on the upper left are going to be more likely to achieve forecasts. People on the lower right are going to be less likely to achieve forecasts. Value-centric people are going to have what we call a lower beta. If they have a stock, they're going to have less volatility in their financial outcomes. If they're a leader of a public company, they'll have what's called lower stock volatility. If they're if they're resource-centric, they're going to have what's called higher beta or higher volatility. As you can see, the idea behind this is that we may start off with manager financial behaviors, but we're aggregating this because we want to find out who the industry winners are going to be, given the information on individual financial behaviors, team financial behaviors, comparing that with competitors' financial behaviors, and then looking at what this means for competitive dynamics and for who's going to win or lose in a particular industry. Even your balance sheet and income statement may not tell you, because you may be profitable today, but that profitability reflects behavioral conditions which happened a few years before. So profitability is a terrible, terrible way of measuring what your behavioral financial traits are. As we saw just before the recession, everyone was wildly profitable. It all turned out to be wrong.